Welcome, guys. It's Talking Kaizer Chiefs, brought to you by Soccerbeat, and I've got two Kaizer Chiefs legends here. Tsepo Masilela, left-back champion winning, and Farouk, who spent many years on the bench at Kaizer Chiefs. And I think both of you have seen and been involved in better situations during your time in the current Kaizer Chiefs situation. Guys, the first question I want to ask you, the coach said after the game, he basically laid a lot of the blame on the players and said, the players are not, the final ball is not good enough, and a Kaizer Chiefs player should do that. And he said the finishing is not good enough, and a Kaizer Chiefs player should be able to do that. And thirdly, he implied that they're not sacrificing themselves for the team and the fans. Now, obviously, his English is not very good, and he spoke in English. I think he showed everybody he'll speak English even if they don't win now. But he obviously listens to the show or watches the show. But so first of all, I'll start with you, Tsepo. What do you make of those three comments? But I'm going to ask you a question about those three comments. Why has it taken him, 7, 8 months to come to that conclusion? And surely he's working with them every day. Is it what he said, was that right? Is he right? Is it fair?
Hi, Pyramid. To an extent, it's more of going back to the point he made, when he said this team, it's not a team that's ready yet to challenge and to compete for championships, so meaning he needs more quality. And again, when you look at today's game, maybe it's a frustrating draw. Sometimes these interviews, they come when the coaches are still, the emotions are still high. Maybe he's sitting back, he needs the players for the next 9 games of the league, and they're still in the Nedbank Cup. Obviously, he has to find a way to lift their heads up and get them going till the season finishes. But I think it came from a point of frustration, looking at the Du's chance. He felt that today they could have walked away with 3 points if the players took the chances there. And also the half chances they had in the game, and I think he was more frustrated. You could tell, from his post-game interview.
So Farouk, Tsepo's been he's been very polite, I think, in his analysis of it. But fair comment. You sat on that bench. You've been in the position that you're unique yet out of all of us, and out of probably everybody watching the show. You're in the unique position that you sat on this bench with two great coaches, Ted Dumitru and Mushin Ertugrul. Funny enough, Mushin was there today. First of all, answer my question about, is the coach right to say what he said, and is it true what he said? And then talk to what Tsepo's point about the frustration of coming straight into a match interview after the game, after not a bad result, but a frustrating result.
Well, firstly, what is important is when you're in the situation that he finds himself in, the team's confidence is very low. If you look at the body language, if you look at the coach himself, just his body language tells you that the morale of the team is low. So it wasn't the right time to make those utterances, because now the players listen to these interviews. And obviously the players then reflect and say, so now the coach is putting the blame on us. When you're in a situation like this, as a coach, you don't speak your mind. You don't say what's on your mind. You say what is politically correct. At this time, the players need you more. Yes, Shaba Mr. Cole. Yes, the players didn't perform, but they need you most now. They don't need you to throw them under the bus. That's my personal opinion. As a coach, I will control my emotions. When I get into the change room, I'm going to have a go at them. And I'm going to make sure that in the next training session, I look at remedying those situations. From a tactical point of view, the team lacked as much. So the players could turn around and say, our tactics wasn't spot on. We looked to play a lot of diagonal balls early on when we knew Cape Town City's defense was structured and they were sitting in wait for us. We should have kept the ball longer. We should have tried to move them around a little bit more because we have the pace. And we could have looked for those gaps in between the lines and in between the defensive structure to penetrate. That wasn't the case. It's like, Peter, you play the game. Tsepo, you play the game. If you play against an opposition that parked the bus, it's the most difficult thing to overcome. I studied in Brazil, and they taught us to do one thing, which was, when that happens, you look to exploit the negative space. Now, Peter, what is the negative space? The negative space is the space that you occupy, meaning you keep the ball as long as possible to bring them out of that structured block that has been put there. Eventually, players will become impatient. They'll start pressing and leaving space in behind. So you've got to exercise patience. So I think the coach was a little bit emotional. I think when he sits down and he looks at what he said, because now how do you lift those players again? Because already we know the situation with Serino. We know there was a bit of a power struggle there. There was a bit of a misunderstanding. That's why Serino didn't play early on as much football as we would have loved to see. And he's a very key player in that team. He's been substituted on a number of occasions. Chiefs at this moment in time, if I sit back and I analyze them, they're the easiest team to analyze, to play against. There's no surprise elements. You know what to do with them. You know what to do. You block the wings off. You starve possession from the midfielders. Midfielders will have the ball. You allow them to have it. But the minute the ball goes wide, you then ensure that you shift across, you overload your defensive structure, and 9 out of 10 times you will win it. I mean, if you look at how close Cape Town City were defending to that goal, they almost scored a couple of own goals just from balls that were deflected. So you can see they played high-risk defending. You don't want your team to defend. And I'm sure Mushin didn't want it, but you can't blame Mushin. With the quality he has, that was the best tactics you could employ.
Yeah. You know, Farouk, you make a very good point that when you play against Kaizer Chiefs, they don't surprise you by the way they play. But viewers out there, we've got a surprise for you. If you go on the Betway app and you put you go to the Soccerbeat code, you put in the Soccerbeat code, you'll get 25 Rand extra to bet with. Farouk, on that vein, what was there from Chiefs, from this game, not from other games, from this game? Was there any things that you saw from Chiefs that you said, hang on, there's something to build on here. This is what I like. Was there anything? A player, a movement?
Well, earlier in the game, I was very, very impressed with the way they kept possession, the way they moved the ball around. And I would say the first 20 minutes, Chiefs played some very good football. Were a little bit unlucky not to get any shots on target. But as soon as that 20 minutes elapsed, they went back to doing what we've seen them do over a period of time, where that inconsistency comes in. You found earlier on, Serena was tucking the line on the right. You had Shaba on the left. And you found that Solomons was looking to overlap when Serena went inside. Later on, we saw Serena moving a little bit more inside and eventually even ended up on the left. So I think the tactic was to use Sereno to ensure that he's able to combine with Solomons to bring those crosses in. So that looked like a tactic that could unlock the Cape Town City defense. But when they saw that wasn't working, there was no real plan B, where you now found that the likes of Noble came to the party. He looked quite absent. You look at Dupree. He was absent for most. At times, you had to look for Dupree on the field. He wasn't involved. So I just think because of the fact that they were looking to play that forward pass so early, it minimized the effectiveness of the Duprees, of the Serenos. Sereno comes from a culture where they keep the ball longer. At Sundowns, you find that they probe, they circulate, they probe until that moment arises. I think sometimes, if you look at Chiefs, not sometimes, I mean, let me be honest, most times, Chiefs look to play too direct. And it can work against certain opponents. It has worked. But if you look at the amount of points that they've had, I mean, they're on what, 28 points out of what, 20 games now, 29 out of 21 games. That's not a mark of a championship team, you know. And for me, that is something that the coaching team now has to realize. You adapt a player according to your tactical plan, and you ensure that the principles are not negated. The principles being ball retention, overlapping, combination play. All of these things make up the final, I would say, blueprint of a team like Chiefs. And this is what Chiefs needs at this moment, Peter. They need somebody to create a blueprint that will have longevity, will have something that they can carry forward in the next seasons. You just don't want to have a situation where you finish respectfully. I mean, if you look at the position that Cape Town City have now, they 10th on the law. They just got a point today. Look at Marumo. Marumo now has 2 points less than Cape Town City. From the bottom, all that divides position 9 to 16 is 3 points. So there's nothing there that you can say differentiates between teams. So I'm trying to make the point that the Kaizer Chiefs should really have put in a team like Cape Town City to the sword. They're just not good enough at this moment, Cape Town City.
Yeah. So, Tsepo, I mean, you're a Chiefs man through and through. You've been the player. You're obviously a fan right now of the team. When you look at it now, and obviously there's been encouraging moments in the season, and this game is a disappointing result based on expectation. But if you look at the players that he's got, Dupree playing as a 9, and you've got 2 wide men, and you're playing against a team with a low block, which you knew they're going to come with a low block. Is it the right decision to play him as a 9? Surely, if you want to try and, he's got the pace, surely he could be wide rather. And, then they can maybe try and find some space there. Even if you play Chivivaro there, Ranga, at least he's tall enough when the crosses do come in. Why play him? I know this is a coach question as well, but I'm asking you, you're a coach in yourself as well. Why play Dupree there? What does it say about your thinking, knowing you're playing against a low block, and he's not a natural finisher, and he's certainly not a number 9 who's going to win balls in the air?
Definitely, Peter. It's a strange one because even the last game they played against Dallas, he's not someone that can come short and combine with the attacking players. He's not good playing with his back against the goal. He's more of a player that I think his best position is coming from wide. Making those runs. Or you can give him that 9 position when you're leading and the team is taking more risk, the opponents are taking more risk, leaving spaces behind because that's his game. He likes to run to the spaces. But I don't know, man. It's strange. I think also when you look at the Ranga, I think his confidence also is down, and he's got no options, he's got no. That's when you go back to depth. He's got no depth now because they had Maurice, for a couple of games. They lost him through an injury. So you're looking at Ranga, you're looking at Dupree. Ranga right now is not in a good space. You even saw when he came on today. He had a couple of touches here and there, but you can tell his confidence is at the lowest. I think it's more of a question of they don't have the depth. Looking outside, they have the Dura boy injured, playing as a striker, a wide player. I think it's a case of no other options. Like when you look at the squad, Dupree maybe is the guy that they want to go with right now and give him a chance.
Yeah. But you know what? And I'm going to put this question to Farouk after our break, is that this kind of game, for me, needed an innovative coach who's going to do something out the box and is going to create a bit of havoc by thinking out the box. And possibly what I would have liked to have seen the coach go, you know what, let's try something different. Let's put Lollipop down the middle. He's big and tall. Let's get Dupree out wide. And suddenly, all Mushin's plans are now in disarray because now Serena can put crosses in there because Lollipop is big and strong. He can get it to feet. He can turn. He's powerful in the air. He's powerful on the ground. And they've got to worry about Dupree's pace as well. So I'd like to have seen some out the box thinking. But before that, let's going to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors.
How would you like to win a little something extra just for joining the best in the game? For a limited time, we are teaming up with Betway and giving all of you access to a Soccerbeat exclusive. If you join Betway using the sign-up code Soccerbeat, now in March, you'll get 25 Rand extra bet. That's right. It's time to get way more out of every bet. Standard T's and C's apply.
Welcome back, guys. Don't forget, please, to subscribe. The more you subscribe, the more we can get people like Farouk and Tsepo on the show. Right. Farouk, I'm not a coach. In fact, I spent a few years coaching, but I'm certainly not a coach. Our resident coach here. My comments about maybe making the mix a bit crazy, doing something different. I know Lollipop's not an out-and-out striker. Would you, sitting on the bench, you turn to Mushin or you turn to Ted, things are not looking good? Do you look for some kind of surprise?
Well, we did that on a number of occasions. If you can look back at Kaizer Chiefs when we had Khadebe and Collins and Besuma playing, we realized that Collins was more of the goal scorer. We realized that Khadebe was more of the mobile player. He didn't have the same ability to convert chances. So we needed for the two of them to complement each other. So we would use Khadebe to take defenders into certain areas, to leave space for Collins, and Collins ended up being the highest goal scorer that particular season. So he won the league basically for us. If you look currently at Chiefs, they've got Duba and Shaba on 4 goals. How can you win silverware when your highest goal scorers are guys on 4 goals? I mean, on the flip side, you look at Ribeiro on 14, you look at Reines on 9, and you look at, what's his name, the Namibian striker, Shalulile, on 7 or 8. It says there's a variety of goal scorers in the team. Now, coming back to your point, you mentioned earlier, Peter, about the false 9 that they want to play. You can only use a false 9 who he hasn't got the stature, but he has the skill and speed. Now let's look at number 9, Dupree. He's got the speed, but he hasn't got the skill to minus players. He can run past you at speed. He can use his pace, but he can't dribble you from a standstill point. Now you look at classical false 9s. You look at the likes of Messi. He can dribble you from a standing position, and many of those that play in that position. So I think the profile doesn't fit the position per se. So I'm saying exactly what you're saying, even if it means bringing Serrero into the middle with Tele and making sure that you have Modi playing in behind Lelepo, it could bring you more joy because it's something different. Lelepo has an eye for goal. He's more comfortable. He's more composed. But most of their best players are always attacking from wide positions, including Modi. Can you imagine Modi with a skill? If he's facing goal, his angle is much wider. He can go both ways. Now, when he comes from the left, as we see, all he does is he looks to bend the ball far post, which he tried and wasn't successful. So I think you've got to think outside the box. In an ideal world, you'll have that number 9, that big stature guy, not necessarily big, but that guy who has an eye for goal, like Collins and Besuma had. So I think every time they go to the market, they need to start to find players that can fit into the existing structure, not just buy players that will be good elsewhere and look together. I mean, we've seen that on a number of occasions lately where they bought players. I mean, Chipaviro, I believe, with more time, with more effort, with the right work, can score more goals. But the amount of pressure, Peter, you look at I always look at players' body language. For me, my greatest gift is my eye to see body language. And I know when a player is under enormous stress, I know how to comfort him. Because you need a player to go on the field who's cool and calm and collective. Most of the misses you saw today was anxiety. Personally, I think it was anxiety, including the Shaba miss. There's so much emphasis now on them winning. My biggest thing, and maybe off the cuff, is if they go into the Nedbank semi-final playing this type of football, then there's going to be another long period before Chiefs win any silver.
Yeah. Listen, Tsepo, are there any players out there that have stepped up? I mean, the coaches spoke about they've got to sacrifice. They're not. Are there any players today that you feel stepped up and said, hang on, I did the job?
Yeah.
Today's game.
In my opinion, Pierre, I would go with Thabo Kgele. I think he had the most touches on the ball, and you could, as the coach said, when you look at the player's body language, you could see that he wants to drive the team forward. He wants to start things from the back, and he wants to drive the team forward. Unfortunately, you cannot play 6, 8, 10 in one game, but you could tell that he really wants to win. And again, they looked good when he's on the ball, when he's dictating, when he's controlling the game. And at a team like Kaizer Chiefs, you need ball players, Peter. Ball players in the sense that when you play low defense, as the coach was saying, you need to have that patience on the ball, till you find the right moment. Because even in the first half, the only time Cape Town looked dangerous is when they played to Cape Town hands, when they tried to play those 1-2s or wrong ball in wrong areas on transition, on turnovers, and they looked a bit dangerous on set pieces. That's the only time. But if you have ball players, the more you have the Thabo Kgeles in your team, that can control the game, control the rhythm, and the flow of the game, you stand a better chance. And for me, Thabo today, what is socks off.
I think Farouk will agree with you because Farouk is the one who actually brought this guy up in the game of football. But we'll talk about that at another time. Farouk, I'm a very simple guy when it comes to football because you can take away all the noise. But if I look at this particular game and I just look at both ends, Chiefs in City's box and Chiefs defending when City are in their box, and I see two things. One, Chiefs missed a number of chances, and City equally missed a number of chances. So that tells me there are problems in both areas, that you can get into a dangerous position, a goal scoring position against Cape Town City, against Kaizer Chiefs relatively easily, and you don't have to worry too much when Kaizer Chiefs get into a goal scoring position against you, because they may not necessarily score. And that, if I was a club owner, I'd be concerned, or if I was a coach, I'd be very concerned, because that's the money is on those two ends. You can do as much as you like in the middle of the park, but at the end of the day, the money is at those two ends. And that leads me to this question, Farouk. You sat on that bench. You've taken that responsibility. Nabi, has he done enough so far, nearly 3/4 of the way through the season, for you to say he's the man to get this right? I know it's a hard question. I don't want to know, give him time. I want to say, if you're the chairman, are you backing him further, and why?
Well, firstly, I think he's done the best he can. I mean, there's some very promising moments that I saw tonight, especially in possession, when they created those half chances, poor finishing was their undoing. But in saying that, the buck stops with the coach. We as coaches know one thing for sure. We are judged on results. We are judged on silverware. And that is something you can never take away. We've seen some top coaches losing their jobs when the results are not forthcoming. I think my advice would be that Nabi needs to get the mentality, the confidence, the self-belief. And it can't be cosmetic. You know, there's ways of doing that, Peter. Sometimes we pat a guy on the back and we tell him, Tsepo, you're the best, you know this. And our actions show something else. For example, tonight, can you imagine the motivation the coach had prior to the game with the players? And then at the end of the game, he now says to the whole nation that these guys are a bunch of guys that are not coming to the party. I don't think any player there goes out there not to perform. If you look at the saves Wuma made, if you look at the way they fought to keep Cape Town City out, no player, no professional player, and Tsepo will bear me out, goes out there to lose or goes out there not to give 100%. And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to point fingers at players. I feel players play for the jersey. You have a squad of 30, 25. If you don't play, I don't play you. You can put your arm up, you put your hand up. So I think that is the luxury the coach has. If a player doesn't perform, then ensure that he doesn't get the next opportunity. But the one thing we must also remember and question, Peter, is if you look at the number of injuries Kaizer Chiefs have had lately this season, I can't believe what I see. I mean, just go through the list and see how many injuries they've had. Could it be because of the style of play? Could it be because of the tactical play? Could it be because of the psychological pressure? I mean, there could be a number of things, and I'm not involved.
It could also be their training methods.
It could, but I don't want to go on record because maybe Nabi's got the best training methods in the world. Maybe he's got the best whatever. But whatever you have is only measured. The litmus test is what you produce on the field. I could say I'm the best in what I do. What am I judged on? I'm judged on as a youth coach currently on what I produce. If I don't produce a player that can play at the highest level and perform, then I'm a failure as a youth coach. And for you, Peter, if you're the head coach of a team, if you don't win silverware, I guarantee you, your days are numbered.
Yeah. So, Nabi keeps talking about the project. Is it the project, the process? And believe in the project, believe in the process. Is there, I just want to, Tsepo, I don't want to know whether we should give him time or not, but do you see progress in this project? Do you see light? Or is it going backwards, or is it stood still? Or is this a natural, normal phenomenon in a process? Because the fans out there need to know. They need to know from people like you and Farouk. You've been there, you've done it, player and as a coach. Nabi says we're in a process. You know, does a process go up, down, up, down, up, down before it goes continually forward? Do you see progress in this process?
I do see progress, but not in the pace that we expected. It's a very slow progress, and to be quite honest, in football, at some point, the decisions have to be taken, or made, because they backed him, they allowed him to come with his whole technical team. He's got the goalkeeper coach, fitness coach, assistant coach, second assistant. At some point, if the progress is not moving at a pace, that everyone expected to move, decisions will be made. But I think there is a slight progress, not too much of a progress there, in my opinion.
And then Farouk, you've been in Nabi's position. You sit on a bench. You've worked with players week in, week out. Obviously, Nabi's not unique in saying he's got a process. He's involved in a process. Coaching is a one continuous process anyway. Carlos Ancelotti is still in a process with the team. Every team's in work in progress, and it is a process and it is a project. But only looking from the start of the season to today, is there marked progress that he could look back and say, okay, I'm getting somewhere, in your opinion?
Well, there's been progress in little clusters. For me, I want to see continuity. I want to see consistency. If I'm a club owner, I'll give you time as a coach, Peter, but I want to see your game model emerge in front of me. It's not about the result. Don't get me wrong. I think Nabi's done a good job. In certain moments, he's done well. The team has won. But what the team lacks is that level of consistency. And it's not just about goal scoring. It's about when you look at the game model, you want to look and reflect at how the team builds up from defense. How are they able to keep possession in midfield, which I call the launching pad. Now, the launching pad is such where you launch attacks from there. You don't play through the midfield and expect to have an effect on opponents because they're waiting for you. So I just think the game model needs to be refined, where Chiefs start dominating with the ball. Because Chiefs have always been known to be a team that dominate. Currently, we see Orlando Pirates doing that effectively. They're very calm. They're very fluid in their possession. Sundowns, well, I don't even have to say much. We know what they're capable of. So this is what we need Chiefs to show. Chiefs at the moment are playing no different to your, with all due respect, your Magazis or one of the teams down at the bottom. And in some instances, those teams also look a little bit more refined. So in summary, what I want to say, Peter, is my advice would be get a game model where yes, the results is important, but what is more important is that you build a foundation where the team where you're able to see the team's philosophy and style of play instantly, where you have players that can play out of the back, where you have players in midfield. There's a magic word for a team, which is balance. There was a team, Argentina, that played in the World Cup many years ago, Peter. They had a guy by the name of Caleco as a number 6. They had Osvaldo Adidas, and they had Mario Kempes. And when we studied in Brazil, we were taught that the coach there used to smoke a lot of cigarettes. I don't know if you recall that coach.
Cesar Menotti was the coach.
Yeah, and that particular World Cup hinged on them winning it to avoid a civil unrest. That's how bad it was in Argentina. They had to win.
Great.
So they brought this coach in, and he realized to win this World Cup, he needed to have balance. If you look at the stats, Caleco hardly ever went beyond the midfield. Mario Kempes scored the most goals. And Osvaldo Adidas was pulling the strings. He was the orchestrator or the conductor. So now, if you look at Kaizer Chiefs now, you have a Tele, who's supposed to be your conductor. You have a Serino, who's got to be your Adidas. Now you've got to ask yourself, who is the number 6 that can manipulate things from a deeper position? Because Tele, for me, is not a number 6. You need a player who can destroy, like a Eric Tinkler type. When we had Fana team, we had Eric who did all the dirty work. He'll give the ball to Dr. Kumalo, he'd give the ball to Shoes Michel, and they would make things happen. So each player has his responsibility. I don't think the players.
Nenga Marshak at Sunday.
Thank you. You look at Nengomash. You look at Busquets, the former Barcelona player. Did very little on the ball. Sometimes we play 2-touch. Brilliant turn on the ball. But he was that solid, I would say, that rock in midfield. So have Chiefs replaced Nengomash? If you go back to your playing days, who did they have there? They had, I think, who did Chiefs have in the middle there? They had this.
Chiefs had Malombo Chaba.
And Malombo knew what he needed to do. Yeah, he broke down attacks. He forced you guys at Cape Town City to stay at bay. And then you had the likes of Teenage who would destroy you guys down the wing.
And Ace. And
Ace,
computer.
Ace was your dealers. Ace could put his foot on the ball. We don't see that balance. For me, when I build a team from behind. My most important player is my goalkeeper. I'm going to break the bank. If you employ me one day, I'm going to say, Peter, I want the best keeper that is available. I'm going to make sure, based on my philosophy, that I have 2 ball-playing central defenders. And I want the quickest wing backs. the quickest fullbacks. I want players like Tsepo who can go down the wing, get those crosses in, but not only do that, who can also become inverted where they can play from the center. Now that is expensive football. I expect Chiefs to play expensive football.
Yeah. Tsepo, you've got to get fit. Listen, guys, just Coach Farouk has just actually outlined the way forward for Kaizer Chiefs. I think hopefully his Kaizer Junior is watching. I know he does watch. I know.
I need to bill him, Peter. I need to send him an invoice.
Chiefs, you've got the first draft of the plan. I was enthralled. I was ready to buy a season ticket. But anyway, guys, thanks very much. Please don't forget to subscribe. It makes Farouk and Tsepo happy and all of us happy. We really appreciate you watching the show. And don't forget, also appreciate our sponsors. Go on the Betway app, put in the Soccerbeat code and get yourself an extra 25 Rand. Tsepo, as usual, fantastic. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Farouk, always his wise words.
Cheers.
I think the fans out there appreciate it. Let us know what you think of what Farouk and Tsepo have to say, guys. See you again soon.
Yes,
Cheers.
yes.
Soccerbeat,